Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options and Play video update. It's all a whole bunch of stuff moving around, like a ton of names in the news. And what am I going to talk about today? Gold and silver, right? Uh, there's plenty of stock specific action going on that really starting to see some bullish reversals. It seems like it started the last 2 days, right, in the overall market, and then the first of the month today. So the calendar flipping over from October to November has brought even more buy-in. So a lot of bullish reversals are starting to take shape. And in the context of that, I wanted to revisit a couple of like the hedge ideas. So over like the course of October, I did a couple of videos talking about hedges. Uh, you know, there was an initial one which talked about spiders, VIX, gold, etc. Then there was a follow-up one that talked about utilities, XLU, and silver. So today's video, I kind of want to talk about gold and silver, and surprisingly positive action, all things considered. And what I mean by that is, well, first off, these precious metals can be tricky. And yesterday, just I feel like was really really big head fake from gold, right? So yesterday off the open, it had broke back below 115, which is a pretty important level. It was hanging above it. It wasn't like distancing itself from 115 or the 100-day, but it was hanging above nice. And then yesterday, kind of like a gap down island underneath the 50, underneath 115, underneath the 100-day, just kind of like an ugly bar. And that's when I thought cutting back risk of like that December 115 call and rolling up kind of made sense, just because it was a bearish reversal. But then, as is the case, when you have like these commodities, they can be a lot of head fakes, and today just an enormous gap back up. So it's kind of shaping up like almost like an island reversal, um, and now it's like back above 115, back above the moving averages, and now it's like back in business, right? And why this is interesting is a because for some sort of protection, it's not a perfect protection asset. It doesn't move exactly inverse with the market, but it is kind of like a flight to safety. When people start to get nervous, you'll see gold, silver, sometimes bonds start to get bid up just because people are starting to put their money, they take money out of stocks, putting them in other different assets, right? And so the fact that the market's starting to look a little bit better, right? And starting to firm up a bit, starting to show bullish reversals, but then you get like this really great action today in gold to put it back above 115. And the reason why I'm harping on this 115 area, I mean, this is just like a shorter term chart, but the further back I go, you'll see why it's significant. So if I drew this going back through last year, you can see really important longer term level. So it broke below it, and now it's trying to reset above it. And I mean, really, like the range dictates that when it bounces off 115, most of the time it leads to a run up into the 120s. So that's why I'm really stressing this 115 level, is because of like the long term range on it. So now what, right? So now it's reset, or it's in the process of resetting, and there's really so much upside here that it needs to get people back on board. And what you're watching is you're going to want to watch for the volume, which has been obviously stronger. I mean, since the big gap up, the volume has been elevated. You can see it compared to most of the past few months. So you really want to see the volume confirm it here. You want to see a pickup in volume, and then you also want to see participation in the options, and you are starting to see that. So that there's been some buying in November. Today, over 13,000 December 20 calls have traded. Uh, so kind of encouraging. Like you want to see the the GLD, so like the ETF. You want to see the volume accelerate in that, like pick up, because it's at a really critical pivot. It's breaking a monthly downtrend and trying to reset above a key long-term level of support. So you want to see the volume pick up here, and you want to see the options, so you want to see the call buying pick up. So you're starting to see both, and that's a really, really encouraging sign. And you can separate this. It's a hedge. It's a partial hedge, yes, but it also could stand on its own. I mean, even if the market rebounds here, this the way this is setting up, it could work just on its own. Regardless of what the overall market does. Now onto silver. So this was another hedge idea, and this one was follow up after gold. So like gold triggered first, and then silver was working on a reversal. So you can see that silver also similar, but not quite as bullish yet. And what I mean by that is it broke this long-term, like monthly trend. There's a real aggressive downtrend because once it finally lost this level of support, just a really steady downtrend. But what's encouraging about silver is that it also had like this gap down. You can see had a gap down below recent trend support, kind of like an island reversal, and then ricocheted right back up to the 14 level, which is a really, really, really key level here. You can see, basically since it gapped down in August, it's been stuck underneath 14. But a really powerful reversal after this kind of island. It formed like this island underneath rising trend support. So it's a type of move that could really accelerate higher because it traps some people. It shook out the weak hands, and then maybe it could really, like, if it powers through this 14, it could really trap some of the people that were sitting short, thinking that there was going to be a material breakdown, right? It's one of like those trap moves that could really have some power behind it. And similar to gold, it hasn't quite triggered. Whereas gold's back above 115 and it's moving average resistance, this hasn't quite triggered. But once it does, it also has like a considerable amount of room here. So you have obviously the 100-day it has to contend with, but really once you go back and start looking at like longer term, you can see that silver lost quite a bit more than what gold had, and to reset like the long-term level. This could have like a move up to like 1475, 15 really before it encounters like any major resistance in between. So that's why 14 is important, because once it can get through 14, then it could really start to build back into like the longer term level of support up closer to 15. And you can see like 15 is really important from like a longer term perspective. So that's why these precious metals, they're interesting because they could benefit not only from maybe demand for protection, or if these inflation numbers keep reading hot, maybe from inflation numbers, but also they could just set up on their own, which is just separating them from all of what the overall market's doing. They're strong bullish setups just as they stand on their own, and that's why I think it's like they kind of fly under the radar, because so many people are focused on what the S&P is doing, what the Q is doing, what Apple's doing, what Amazon's doing, but there's a lot of interesting setups going on, and there's a lot of money moving around, at least over like the last couple months, right? It seems that when the money kind of leaves the stocks, it starts to go to other places, or maybe it rotates to areas that have been out of play for a while, and these precious metals really fit the bill. Just names that have been so out of favor for so long, and both gold and silver are both setting up pretty nice for bullish reversals. So don't sleep on those. All right, so apples tonight. We'll see what we get. It's gonna be a wild finish to the week. Apple tonight, Baba tomorrow, Chevron, Exxon tomorrow. So right there you have over $2 trillion worth of companies reporting. Right, just those four alone are basically about $2 trillion. So it's a setting up for a busy finish. Next week will be another busy week. You're not going to have any mega cap tech, but there'll still be plenty of names that should be flying around. So lots to look forward to. As always, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out, questions, comments, pass them along. Have a fantastic night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.